Dzień dobry. Dzisiaj przy okazji pracy nad projektem Krytyczne czytanie ze Szkołą Edukacji, o którym możecie przeczytać więcej na naszej stronie i na blogu Buszujące w słowach, spotykamy się z dr Kate Montgomery, która przyjechała do nas prosto z Bostonu. Z dr Montgomery współpracujemy już od wielu lat przy różnych projektach, szczególnie tych, które dotyczą czytania, literatury i planowania uczenia czytania i literatury. Dziś prowadzimy wspólnie warsztaty dla naszych nauczycieli zaangażowanych w projekcie i przy tej okazji myślę, że warto chwilę porozmawiać o tej niezwykłej, ciekawej filozofii uczenia czytania, z którą przychodzimy do Was. Okay, so Kate, hi, good morning or good afternoon. As I told our listeners and watchers, we are going to talk a moment about the reading skills, which are really important, but also something rather special when you think about it. So, when you try to define reading as a skill, what does it consist of or should consist of?
Ooh, interesting question. So many people, when they think about what a good reader is, think of decoding. They think of just like making the letters go together into words.
Yeah.
But we know reading is so much more than that, right? And it's not just knowing what the words mean, it's putting them all together and coming up with meanings that are bigger than the words themselves, right? Like thinking beyond those words to what the author could have intended or what the text says that the author didn't intend.
Yes. It's trying to make sense of text.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. And maybe even more like trying to let the text change you. Let the text mean something to you. Maybe even let it change what you think of the people in your lives because you understand them differently, because you understand characters.
Yes. And you have like a lot opportunity to meet a lot of perspectives and points of view that maybe in your own experience, real life, it's impossible to meet, right? So that's why we need books.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember a girl who was reading a story once, and she got to an action that a character like her was taking with a sister, a fight she got into. And she was talking with a partner about it, and she was saying, I wasn't angry when my sister was born. I just wasn't angry. And her partner said, really, you weren't? And then she thought about it for a minute, and she was actually saying, actually, I was angry. And it made her rethink how she had behaved toward her sister that she thought was one way, but was actually another way. So it was like changing her relationship.
Yeah, I think that during the reading lessons I saw, right, or you taught us, the most important part of it is realizing that, it makes me think.
Yeah.
Right? Let's stop. It makes me think. Right? I need to read about it further or think about it deeply.
But it's crazy because some people think that good reading doesn't include stopping.
Yeah.
Like they think that it's just about speed.
Yes.
Reading as fast as you can, when actually good readers stop and think and like let it soak in and then probably go back and reread. So it's not just about speed, right?
Yeah, it's not about finishing it in like few moments, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The faster the better. Well, I was thinking about our like traditional approach to reading, and we usually teach it directly in very early stages of our education, like first 3 years maybe, and then we stop considering reading as something we need to teach, right? That's something that our students need to learn. So why do you think reading should be taught, visibly taught at school, not only in the first stages?
Right, it's connected to what we were just talking about, right? Yeah. So if reading is much more than putting the letters and sounds together, if reading is a process of making meaning and letting it affect you, then there are different ways to teach children how to think about reading. Things to try, like maybe they don't understand what a text means, so what can they try to understand it better? I mean, sometimes teachers just say, read it again, but maybe they still don't understand the second time. Like what could they try in order to find a deeper meaning.
Yeah. So with reading is, the situation with reading is just a bit similar to situation with thinking. We usually consider them like natural actions people do. Right? It's natural to think. We never try to, look at the action itself from above, right? And try to see the strategies that help us. And I think that with reading, it might be the same. It's not enough to be just a natural reader.
Right.
There are some strategies that might help you make yourself a better reader.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, every discipline has thinking strategies or thinking frameworks to try on to help us push a bit further than we might get to just with our own patterns of thinking. And reading's no different.
Yeah.
So it's worth it, to be strategic about it.
Can you name one example of a good strategy to use?
Well, sure. I mean, sometimes kids have a hard time interpreting text. They have a hard time finding a bigger meaning. They just read it and they understand the plot. Yes. So if you ask them to think about what the text is teaching them, to look for images that really stay in their mind and go back to those to try to figure out how those few strong images connect, sometimes that helps them find a deeper meaning. Or to pay special attention to the first parts or the last parts or titles.
Yes.
Lessons from wise characters in the book. Sometimes all of those things can point them to a text's deeper meaning.
Yeah, true. And if you practice, then you can use these strategies in various texts, right? So,
exactly, right. They work across texts. It's not just about learning what a message is for a particular text, because then when you go to another text, it won't help. So it's good to learn things to try that work across texts.
Yeah. And to be ready just to, I think, make mistakes, right, on your way. So sometimes you use some strategy and say, it doesn't work with this text or with me or in this situation. So I have a variety of strategies to use.
Yeah, exactly. And it makes sense that as you're trying to build a meaning or an interpretation from a text, you don't get it immediately right. Yeah. So you just keep working on it. You try different strategies and you check it against the text. Does it match the setting? Does the message match what the character's learning? And you just change it and revise.
Yes.
So it's important not just to think, I got it wrong, forget about it, I can't do this.
True. So a good reader is persistent, is ready to learn, is ready to use different approaches. But in our project, we stress that one more thing that we need to be good readers, advanced readers, is to ask critical questions, because we call it critical reading, right? So what is critical reading, in fact?
Well, there's probably lots of different definitions, but maybe what they all have in common is that critical reading means thinking beyond the text. So hopefully, as a reader, you've kind of figured out some of the main messages of the text, and then you put those messages in context and think about them. Who benefits from the story being told this way? Or does the story apply to all people and all groups? Or, does the world need this story? Why or why not? Do I agree with this message? Why or why not? So it's trying to put the message of the story into a greater context, to think about the sources maybe if it's nonfiction.
Yeah, so it's I think it's so useful for us in our Polish context, because all across our curriculum we have different types of texts that sometimes are considered really out of time, out of date, not really useful. But then if you think about putting them in context, so always asking yourself, do I need this book, or why do I need this book? Why was it written that way? It automatically makes more sense to read it, right? It's it's easier to try to justify this book on the reading list.
Absolutely, yeah. And if you can say the role that it plays, then you can also imagine what is missing. So you can say, okay, this text does this job and it has this point of view, but what other points of view are missing that I maybe need to add to my reading to fill out the picture or to balance it a bit?
Yeah, I'm smiling because, well, it takes bravery, right? To be a teacher here and be ready for all different types of answers.
Absolutely. And you would never know. The thing about critical questions or any kind of deep question really is you don't know what the students will say.
Yeah.
And so you have to be welcoming to their ideas and help them build something that makes sense. But it's true, they may say something you don't agree with or doesn't really make sense at first because they're learning to piece it together, right?
Yeah.
But it can look like it can look disconnected at first, so that feels like chaos.
Yes.
But if you let it grow and you just keep asking why and how does that fit with this and what evidence do you have, then it comes together.
Yes, true. And so it makes our students think deeply about texts and maybe love reading in the end. So if you had just one piece of advice for our students who maybe now are considering whether it's, whether this effort will be fruitful for them or effective for them, so what would you tell them? It's worth reading critically, or it's worth reading in that way because
I think reading critically makes you realize that your thoughts matter, that if you open up to what you're really noticing and thinking and how a text affects you, then you can grow your own thoughts about it and let it matter to your life.
Yeah.